Today on TwinCam we are going to start having a look at some full range brochures, and predictably they're from British Leyland. Over this little series we're going to track through how BL's range evolved from 1970 through to 1990, by which point the company had become the Rover Group. Today's video is going to start with British Leyland's volume division consisting of Austin and Morris, starting with this brochure in 1970, then quickly tracking through to about 1976. This brochure is of course for the Austin range from September 1970. It's a couple of years after the BL merger and each marque retained its old dealer network and therefore publicity material. This started to become a big problem as the ranges diverged and dealers became unhappy, but we'll explore that later. This cover is very late 60s with its coloured blocks and shots of all the cars. I really like it. And notice the traditional BMC style Austin font. No BL identifiers here. Starting of course with the smallest car in the range, the Mini. In 1970 the Mark III Mini had just been launched with wind-up windows, new door handles and internal door hinges. The Mini also became something of a marque in itself. It lost all Austin or Morris badging, gaining a little BL badge down on the A panel. The Mark III is my personal favourite Mini as I think it's the cleanest in terms of styling. This red car is a Mini 850, but the car behind it is quite special. As we're at the start of the Mark III Mini, this is a Mini Cooper S. Very rare as a Mark III. You can tell it's a Cooper S by the bumper overriders. It produces 76 brake horsepower and it still has hydroelastic suspension, unlike the 850 and 1000. If you don't want to read anything, any specs or anything like that, just pause the video. New for 1970 was the Mini Clubman. These sat at the top of the Mini range and were meant to modernise the Mini's appearance with that characteristic of 70s styling wedge front end. Isogonis' original shape was revised by Roy Haynes, who had just moved over from Ford. This orange car is a Mini 1275 GT, the supposed replacement for the standard Cooper, with 60 brake horsepower, a nice stripe down the bottom of the doors, better instruments and the GT badge in the grille. Behind it is the standard 1000cc Clubman and the Clubman estate with its fake wood. Interestingly, it's telling me over in the specs that the Clubman Saloon and 1275 GT retained hydroelastic. I thought the Mark III Mini brought an end to hydroelastic except for the Cooper S, but clearly not. If you can enlighten me as to when the Mini did lose hydroelastic across the range, then please do. All Minis use the A-series engine from 848cc to 1275cc. Another Isogonis design, this time styled by Pininfarina, is the ADO 16, or Austin 1100 and 1300. For the best part of a decade, this was the best-selling car in the country. It was stylish, practical, performed brilliantly, and I think it deserves a lot more credit. It was very much a more grown-up Mini, and all the better for it. A truly wonderful car. It was launched in 1962, so it had been on the market for 8 years by this point and was due a replacement, but we'll see that car later on. 3 different body styles are available: the 2-door saloon, 4-door saloon or 3-door Countryman estate. I particularly love the strip speedometers used on some ADO 16s. Mechanically, hydroelastic suspension, front-wheel drive, 1100cc or 1275cc A-series engines. Finally, for the ADO 16 is the Austin 1300 GT. This was a new addition to the range as a halo model to go alongside the Mini 1275 GT. 70 brake horsepower, twin carburettors and some very period styling touches such as the stripe, GT badges and the wheel trims and the vinyl roof. Then we come to the Maxi. This is the first Austin only model that we've come across, and as there was no equivalent Morris Maxi. This would begin the real issues between dealers as Morris suddenly felt quite hard done to. The Maxi was Isogonis' last car and in 1970 was still brand new. The Maxi got a facelift only a few months into production, and this is one of those facelift models. It was quite a radical change with a new dashboard and a rod change mechanism for the gearbox. That somewhat improved matters from the cable change that the Maxi became famous for. It's proof that the car was rushed out and a symptom that things were going badly wrong behind the scenes, especially after the successes that we've just seen with the Mini and ADO 16. The styling was questionable and Roy Haynes, who I mentioned before, came in to mess about with it before the launch. You can see the shared front end between the Mini and the Maxi. All this being said, the Maxi was a very good car, exceptionally practical with 5 doors and a hatchback, and mechanically impressive with a 5-speed gearbox, hydroelastic suspension, front-wheel drive, and an all-new overhead cam engine known as the E-Series. It was not the success BL were hoping, thanks to the awkward styling and poor reputation. It's a shame, as the design is genius, it just did not have the desirability that the Ford Cortina did. Now we're at the big end of the Austin range. Despite sharing the doors, the Maxi 1800 and 3-litre were different cars underneath. It's these doors that are partially responsible for the Maxi's awkward looks and the belief that these three are actually the same. They aren't. We'll start with the Austin 1800, or the Land Crab as it became known. This is the car Izagonis said he was most proud of, and it was rather impressive. It had no subframes, transverse engines and front-wheel drive, hydroelastic suspension, all the stuff we've come to expect from a 60s Austin, but in a larger package. It was a bit too big to compete with the Ford Cortina, and again it had an awkward appearance. It also felt rather Spartan. It was a very practical car, but all the trimmings felt like they were from a cheaper car. It was very plain, not good when potential buyers wanted an aspirational image. Then we move on to the Austin 3-litre. The last big Austin, and the only car in the range that Izagonis didn't have a hand in. Predictably, it was a disappointment. It used the 6-cylinder C-Series engine and rear-wheel drive, unlike every other Austin, but it did have hydroelastic. But not many people at all wanted it. The wealthy felt it was too cheap and the aspirational felt it was too old-fashioned. Again, awkward styling did it no favours. Due to the rear drive and shared centre section, it was actually smaller inside than the Land Crab, which is just silly for a car higher in the range. That isn't to say it was cramped though, as the Land Crab had stacks of room. So there is the Austin range from September 1970. The smaller end of the range was very successful, but the larger cars, not so much. As good as the Maxi and 1800 may have been, they were not what people wanted to buy and be seen in. So this is our starting point. But before the end of this video, let's have a look at how this range evolved through the 70s. This is an Austin brochure from about 1974, though it isn't dated. We now have some British Leyland branding and the tagline "out in front with front-wheel drive." We're seeing things going wrong just from the cover. This image isn't exactly brilliant. Not only is the car not the prettiest, but the panel gaps are dreadful. The Mini is just as it was in 1970, but without the Cooper S and without hydroelastic. But we see that the brilliant ADO 16 has been replaced by a car that could never fill the boots of its predecessor. This was the downside of design by committee. The compromises completely ruined Harris Mann's styling and it became bloated. This is the Austin Allegro, and its reputation precedes it. It was not a dreadful car, it was mechanically advanced, used very well proven engines, and it performed well. But it was deeply undesirable, and as BL's reputation for poor quality became more and more of a problem, it fell flat on its face. Yet again, symptomatic of everything wrong at a failing company. It had the A-Series and E-Series engines and new hydrogas suspension, a more advanced version of hydroelastic. I'm just going to mention while we're here the Allegro 1750 Sport Special. This was the warm Allegro and it wasn't made very long at all. These are exceptionally rare cars now. The Maxi is again the same, but with the new Maxi HL at the top of the range with twin carburettors and 95 brake horsepower. The Austin 3 litre had been discontinued and not replaced, but the Landcrab range expanded from just the 1800cc 4-cylinder B series to the 2200cc 6-cylinder E series. On the back, some period accessories. Finally for today, this Morris brochure from either 1976 or 1977. A much better cover than that Austin brochure from a few years before, and a rather more handsome car, I may add. We'll skip past the Minis because these are fundamentally the same as they were previously. And the Clubman Minis. And we'll get to the Morris Marina. In 1971, the Morris Minor was discontinued, and while its successor, the ADO 16, continued to 1974, Morris never got a direct replacement. Instead, they got what BL hoped would be a Cortina beater. Austin got the mechanically advanced Maxi for 1969, and Morris began to be placed as a more traditional, simpler marque. The Marina was cobbled together from bits of the old Minor and was launched in 1971, dressed in a body styled by Roy Haynes, and it looks rather good. Underneath, torsion bars at the front, leaf springs at the back, and rear-wheel drive, a return to a bygone age, and the Marina suffered. Despite its modern appearance, the underpinnings were just too old-fashioned for many to take it seriously. BL were victims of their own game. They wanted to emulate Ford's simplicity, but as they'd been at the front-wheel drive and fluid suspension so long, the closest they could get was based on a design from 1948. It was not an Allegro competitor. Morris didn't have a car in that class, but it ended up being too small to take on the Cortina, as the Coke bottle-styled Mark III was launched in 1970 as a much bigger car than the old Mark II Cortina the Marina was designed to compete with. You could get the Marina as a saloon, a coupe, or an estate with either 1.3 A series or 1.8 B series engines. I honestly think the Marina Coupe is a really good looking car. Of course, Roy Haynes also did the Mark II Cortina while he was at Ford. That's another fantastic looking car. And you can see the resemblance between the two, along with the family relationship to the Mini and the Maxi. Finally, the Landcrab was replaced by the Princess. This was very avant-garde, very modern and very well regarded, until the quality issues started. Again, I think this is a brilliant looking car, especially the HLS with its full vinyl roof and trapezoid headlamps, the highlight of Harris Mann's work. It was available with the same engines as the old Landcrab and new hydrogas suspension. Another advanced car which makes the Marina look even more out of place. Clearly that idea of having separate cars for Austin and Morris was very quickly abandoned, especially following BL's rationalisation the year of the Princess's launch in 1975. The Princess was launched as the Austin or Morris 1800 and 2200 and Wolseley Saloon, just like the Landcrab. But within 6 months this was replaced by just calling it the Princess. No Austin or Morris, just Princess, much like the Mini. So there we go, a comprehensive look at BL's volume range in the 70s and how it began to evolve. Next week we'll look at the Specialist Division, what Jaguar, Rover and Triumph were doing, but until then, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. I'll have more videos coming along soon.